another KE Report web. Cory Fleck. I am your host here, and I am also joined by Hugh Agro. He's the president and CEO of Revival Gold. Now, just to let everybody know some of the, nuances of this program that we are using, Hugh will be going through a Revival presentation. We will also have a video component at the tail end of this. For anybody that wants to ask, is a tab on the right-hand side. There are two ones that I want to draw your attention to. A chat tab that is available for everybody to see. So that means all the registrants, including Hugh and myself, will be able to see what is typed in there. Questions, though, is what I want everybody else to use, because that will go directly to me, and I will work in your questions either throughout the interview or simply at the end of this presentation. We will take some time for a Q&A portion. If anyone is having trouble with this, you can also email me, fleck@kereport.com, and I will keep an eye on my emails to keep everybody updated here. Again, there is also a polls question or tab on the right-hand side. There are just a couple questions there. You are all welcome to answer at your convenience. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this webinar. I am going to go ahead and turn off my camera, simply because you guys don't need to see me. Hugh will be here, and the presentation will be coming up. So, everybody, I hope you enjoy. And as I said, keep in touch. Either type in your questions on that questions tab or email me, fleck@kereport.com. Now, Hugh, thank you for joining us. I am pulling up your presentation right now, and we can get right into this.
Thanks, Cory, and everyone. It's great to be with you. And one of the silver linings of this crisis is the opportunity to learn some of these technologies and start putting them to use. So here we go.
Let's get right into the presentation here, Hugh.
Thanks, Cory. So these are obviously difficult times. We've seen unemployment levels rising. In fact, in the last month, we've lost more jobs than were created since the last crisis, the last recession in 2008. $8 trillion of bailout money, about 9.5% of global GDP. And as just an example of that, we've got the Bank of England directly funding Government of England finances, and this is unprecedented. And against a backdrop of new sources of gold to feed growing demand for gold becoming increasingly rare. Now, this is good for our industry and good for the business of Revival Gold. It's a tough time, but I think there's some very good places to be in the market, and one of them, I believe, is Revival Gold. Revival Gold is a growth company in gold. We established the company in 2017, focused on the BEARTRACK ARNETT gold project located in Idaho. We are the largest past producing gold mine in the state with a very good history in the state. We are now the second largest deposit of gold in the state, and we're 100% pure gold, over 3 million ounces and 100% pure gold. We have outstanding exploration and development potential in the project. We have a project that's open in multiple directions. We are PEA ready, and we are permitted for additional drilling to continue to expand the project. We're well positioned in the crisis that we find ourselves in here, with a tight capital structure, solid institutional backing, and good liquidity in the stock. Here's the capital structure: 55 million shares outstanding, market cap of about 40 million. I mentioned earlier strong institutional ownership at almost 40% of our underlying stock, and high net worth individuals in for another 30% of the stock. So again, very solid backing. And you can see from our analyst coverage at the bottom of this page that we've got a lot of favorable expectations for the company and broad support in the market.
Hugh, can you give us any insights on how this share structure in terms of the high net worth and the institutional components have changed over the last maybe year or two?
It's been pretty consistent. We've had in our most recent financings, all of our key shareholders step up to support the company in the midst of the market downturn and with COVID-19, and that I think is illustrative. We've got really solid backing in the company and really favorable support.
When it comes to some of these options and warrants, you have here noted that the average price, exercise price, is around 78 cents. Are any or a significant amount of these options or warrants due to expire anytime soon?
No, nothing significant. Nothing coming up that's significant at all. Not for at least another year or two.
Okay, perfect. Ready to move on here, Hugh?
Very good. So here's our team. I'll say three things about this team. Number one, we have a strong record in the capital markets. Our non-exec chairman, Wayne Hubert, built Andean Resources from 100 million market cap and then went on to sell that business to Goldcorp for $3.5 billion. So strong capital markets background in this team and a track record of success in capital markets across the team. And secondly, we have deep roots in the state of Idaho. Don Byrack's a resident of the state of Idaho. He's a very well-regarded explorationist, has worked up and down the Cordilleran, and gives us a strong sensibility around the requirements in the state and indeed the local scene. I add to that too that our VP Exploration, Steve Priestmeyer, who's also worked up and down the Cordilleran, did his master's degree in Idaho. So strong roots in the state. And lastly, I'd say not only do we have strong roots in the state, but we have strong roots with the project and with the local community of Salmon, Idaho, where we're based. Pete Blakely is our general manager. He's a resident of Salmon, a longtime resident of Salmon, Idaho. And he's the former general manager for the operation when BEARTRACK was the largest producing gold mine in the state of Idaho. So strong capital markets background, deep roots in the state of Idaho, and deep roots with the community of Salmon and the project itself. We're located, of course, in Idaho, in North America, not by chance, but by choice. And I think this is particularly important right now when social distancing and the restrictions on travel are so problematic for operators. Idaho itself is got a great endowment of minerals, and it's been ranked by the Fraser Institute as one of the best places in the world to be doing the business of exploration and mining. In fact, ahead of all of the provinces and territories in Canada. And I would say that the state of Idaho is open for business, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later, but the state of Idaho is open for business. And in fact, mining and exploration have been carved out as essential industries in the state. So even in these difficult times, Idaho is open for business.
Okay, there were some questions involving Idaho and what it's like to work there right now, so we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's move on to the actual projects here, Hugh.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, largest former producing gold mine in the state of Idaho, produced about 100,000 ounces a year of gold and was closed in 2000 when the price of gold went below $300 an ounce. The former operator, Meridian Gold, went down to Chile. And of course, all of the circumstances around that move to Chile have today reversed. Labor rates, power costs, availability of people, and a regime that's a workable regime for working have all moved in our favor in Idaho, and that's to the credit of the state of Idaho and the officials in the state of Idaho, and its industry dynamics. We assembled this land position, the former operating mine, and the land around it in 2017. We put out a maiden resource in 2018. And then in February this year, we put out a updated resource of 3 million ounces of The work was done by RPA, one of the more notable consulting firms in our business, and it consists of about 600,000 ounces of open pit heap leachable material and another 2.4 million ounces of mill material. We're pursuing a two-track approach. The first track is to move the heap leach material back into a restart of the former heap leach operation. And the second track is to develop out the longer-term mill potential for this site. We think it's just outstanding. Here's the land position, Cory, and guess. About 5,400 hectares. We've got, as I said, about 3 million ounces shown in the gold shading. The brown shading on this figure illustrates where we see exploration potential. Clearly, there's a lot of potential on this site. We've got existing infrastructure in the way of power lines and roads, and we'll talk more a little about that infrastructure. But it's a great setting. We're about 1 hour's drive from the town of Salmon, so no requirement for a camp here, and lots to work with in terms of exploration potential, existing infrastructure, and a community that's supportive of what we're doing.
Okay, Hugh, we're going to probably circle back to this slide when we discuss some of the exploration that's upcoming, but let's keep moving through this.
Here's a long section through the main area of mineralization at BEARTRACK. You can see we've got about 5.6 kilometers of known mineralized strike, about 90,000 meters of drilling in the project. The areas that are shown as question marks simply have not been drilled. We've hit in every hole that we've drilled in this project to date.
Is there the plan to drill in some of these infill almost zones, tying these things together, or are you going to stay focused near and around some of these other conceptual pits?
This year we'll be working to step out beyond the areas of known mineralization. Really, we're focused on building the scope of the project. We'll come back in and do infill drilling and pursue some of the, I'll call it lower hanging fruit in the project area within the areas of known mineralization in the future. But I think what investors are looking for, and certainly what we see in terms of potential, is to really build out the scope of this thing.
Okay. Let's move on to the next one, the underground potential here.
So here's a feel for the deposit, cross-section through the mineralized structure, the Panther Creek Shear Zone at BEARTRACK in the South Pit area. You can see that this is a subvertical system. We've got a lot of high grades in the system, and we were very pleased to see RPA come up with a initial bulk ton mineable underground component to the deposit. Why? Because the deposit's open. It's open at depth below 600 meters, and with some of these grades, we see lots of potential for this project well into the future, beyond an initial open pit project. Of course, we'll get to that exploration in due course, but it's nice to know that we have that potential, and there are indications that it hangs together and will continue at depth.
So the underground, then, just to clarify, there have not been any drill holes testing out. It's just RPA that has outlined the potential here.
We've drilled down to 600 meters at depth. Some of the material beneath the economic pits comes into a bulk underground setting based on the drilling that we have done. I guess what I'm saying, Cory, is we haven't pursued high-grade material, and we haven't pursued deep drilling in this project. The deposit is still open, and there is no indication that the mineralization comes to an end. In fact, we have very consistent vertical mineralization, trends in the vertical mineralization. There is no indications of zonation that we've found to date.
Okay, so that's maybe for a couple years down the road, hey? Maybe going a bit deeper once you do understand just how wide the strike length could be here?
Exactly.
Okay, next slide then.
Here's a picture just to give a flavor for the reason why our team is so excited about the exploration potential of BEARTRACK ARNETT. I will just point out a couple of things here. Firstly, in the Rabbit area at the south end of the project, you can see there's a couple of deep-seated fault structures that are outlined from the mag geophysics. These are highly prospective targets, and they follow right along to the south of the mineralized trend that we have tested with drilling to date. So that's an area that we're very excited to get into. There's been no drilling there. It's undercover, and we have drill sites set for getting into that location, and we're permitted and available, ready to go on that. Up in the eastern, the western branch of the property, at the Haiti target area, you can see there's a large heat map underneath the known mineralization there. That just speaks to the size of the engine, the mineralizing engine that sits beneath the Haiti target. And we're excited about that project area because it's open in all directions. And now we can see from the geophysics that there's good reason for there to be a lot more potential around that target area. There are other aspects to this geophysics which the geologists are excited about, and happy to speak more about that down the road. But I think for now, you can see here lots of prospectivity based on our existing mineralized zones, the geophysics that we've run, and the surface exploration that we've done. It's all pointing to this being an exciting area to explore.
So Hugh, there were a couple questions that came in before this webinar that were asking about almost ranking some of these targets, because you do have majority of the resources that are out in the market on this eastern side over at that BEARTRACK property, but then on the left, this ARNETT, and even down at that Rabbit zone. Do you have almost a internal ranking system as to where you see some of the best potential growth coming from?
Yeah, you're giving me a chance to arm wave here, Cory. Look, it's all very tantalizing, and really in the current moment, our discipline has to be around spending our dollars as wisely as we can, and that means as efficiently as we can, and that means trying to speak to the scale of the project. In order of ranking, I think low-hanging fruit for us would come from the Haiti target area up at ARNETT, where we have oxide mineralization open in all directions. And the other area of interest and focus for us is in Rabbit. I mentioned to you that that's a big step out from us from the Joss area. It's about approximately 2.5 kilometers south of Joss, which is in itself a kilometer south of the initial resource we put out in 2018. So we're talking about very big step outs on the mineralized system and within the Panther Creek shear zone. So those would be the areas I think would sit at the top of our list to get drilling. The Haiti target and the Rabbit target. We'd like to go back into Joss. We have numerous targets on the ARNETT property position on the basis of the soil sampling program we ran last year. So we'd like to get into some of those areas. We're permitted to be drilling in those areas, but all in due course.
Okay. Thank you for addressing that. Let's move on to this next slide, the BEARTRACK site.
Thank you. Okay, so for those of you who have not been to a site, there's a lot of advantages to being on a brownfield site, and this is a particularly special brownfield site because we actually have infrastructure on the site that's reusable. The site itself is got road access. We've got water and power to site. We've got an ADR facility which is scaled for 13,000 tons a day. And it'll have to be refurbished, and we've already initiated the work to understand what would be involved in doing that refurbishment. But it gives us a head start, not just in terms of permitting a restart of the operation, because of course we're on a disturbed site and we're within the footprint of existing operations, but also in terms of the cost associated with that restart. We can redeploy this infrastructure, and rather than it go to waste, we can leverage it for future gold production.
Okay, let's move on from there. Here we go. Bit more on Idaho here. There were, again, a few questions on Idaho, so let's spend a little bit of time here, Hugh.
You bet. First thing to say is that responsible mining is welcome in Idaho. There's a long tradition of exploration and mining in Idaho, and there's an appreciation, especially in the county where we're located and in the region of Idaho that we're located, that mining can be responsible mining can be an important part of the community fabric and an important contributor to the state economy and the well-being of the people of the state of Idaho. Now, we're following in the footsteps of state giants like former first governor of the state of Idaho, George Laird Shoup, pictured here. In fact, part of our land position was originally staked by Governor Shoup back in the late 1800s. And so we've got a long history, and we've got a big responsibility to do a good job in Salmon and in Lemhi County with this project. And I can tell you that we are, to a man within Revival Gold, dedicated to doing good work here and being good neighbors. And you can see pictured here a group that's meeting with our team. We spent a lot of time on communication and site tours and getting people out to understand what we're doing and how we're going about doing things. And we take this responsibility very, very seriously. We are really, I think the path for this new generation of explorer developers has been, and the standard of action has been set by Midas Gold, our neighbors to the west, who have done a fabulous job. And we, as I said now 3 times, we take this responsibility seriously, and we really want to do a good job in Salmon with this project and for the community.
Now, Hugh, can you address any environmental problems or reclamation issues that you might have in front of you? There was kind of a broad question that came in that was referring to an old presentation by a mining analyst that just painted almost a broad brush in terms of Idaho and some of the issues that some companies face. Can you give us any thoughts or updates here?
Sure. As I've said, there's a long history of mining and exploration in the state of Idaho, and there's a number of sites in the state that are coming back into the fore. As onshoring occurs, people come back to the United States to bring their expertise and talent and capital to bear. These projects are coming into the fore because they are well located, and there is exceptional potential around these projects for growth in gold production in the state. I think about 12 million ounces of resources in some of these new projects collectively. So that's a big endowment for the benefit of the state of Idaho. But with that comes responsibility. And look, make no mistake, the state of Idaho, the regulators who've taken supremacy over, for example, water and the management of water and the discharge of water, are not. There's no cakewalk here. There's no free ride. We all need to do good work. We need to abide by the standards of the state and the federal EPA, and I can say that we are doing so. In particular, at BEARTRACK ARNETT, we've got a great history and a legacy with this project. It's operated flawlessly over the years. We've got over a 30-year track record of managing the site well. Yamana Gold, Meridian Gold before Yamana, all did excellent work there. And really the main challenge in Idaho is water, and we have to be careful with water. It means we have to collect it, we have to treat it, and we have to make sure it's properly discharged and monitored. But as I say, we've got a successful track record at BEARTRACK ARNETT, and the site itself is wonderful. We'll come to some pictures of the sort of reclamation work that has taken place at BEARTRACK ARNETT. It's illustrative of the good work that companies like Revival Gold can do, Midas Gold, and some of our other peers can do to make these sites something that's not just of value in the short term to the community, but a resource that can live for future generations.
All right, appreciate you taking hold of that question. Let's look to what's next here on this slide.
Quick summary, really, of the what's next at Revival Gold. Currently, we're working on a lot of desktop work. The focus is on environmental permitting and assessments and planning work in respect of our drilling, but also as we think about the prospects and possibilities of a potential restart of heap leach operations. So we're starting that work now. A lot of background desktop work taking place. And the other thing we're doing is we're preparing for an economic study for the potential restart of leach operations. So a lot of things come into that. One of the things I mentioned earlier is an assessment of the existing infrastructure and how that might be of a value to us. We're also looking at some of the layouts and approaches we might take to maximizing our use of the existing footprint that is available to us at BEARTRACK ARNETT. And of course, we're busy thinking about drill targets and planning around future drilling. Now, some of that will be very much dependent on our mobility and our accessibility to be able to do that in teams, of course. And we want to be careful and respectful of health and safety as a priority number one, particularly in the time of COVID. But we're doing the background desktop work as we speak to be able to get into the field as soon as we might. Longer term, as we think about 2021, certainly there'll be resource expansion drilling to be done. And we'd like to move, if successful with that resource expansion drilling, to not only thinking about the potential for a restart of the heap leach operation, but also to be thinking about the prospects and possibilities around a much larger mill operation as we move into 2021.
So, Hugh, do you have any idea how quickly this could be restarted in terms of the heap leach?
We're working on that now, and Cory, it'll take some time to work through the permutations of how we lay out the site, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. We'll have the answer to that question by the end of the year with a PEA and the economics wrapped around it.
Okay. Time to move on to the video here. Hey, Hugh?
Yes. Thank you.
Now, everyone, just bear with me as we quickly switch it over. Here's a little video that Hugh will talk through. This video is also available on the Revival site, but I wanted to give Hugh a chance to talk through this video. Here we go, Hugh.
Thank you. So we want to give you an overview of the site and maybe give you a better feel for the project itself. Here we are in the western U.S., accessible by road and by plane right to the town of Salmon, Idaho, where we're based. The project's about an hour outside of Salmon, as I've said. And here you can see in gold the footprint of the existing resource, the infrastructure we have, power line, and the conceptual targets for future exploration. Over 4 million ounces have been produced or discovered here to date. So this is a very prospective area. Focusing in on ARNETT, we've got two trends of almost 4 kilometers long each of prospective ground for exploration. And to date, the focus of our attention and energy has gone into the Haiti target area up on the top left of the screen here. And it's in that area that we have approximately 200,000 ounces of open pittable heap leach material in a very nice setting. Deposits open in all directions there. and we have about 400 meters of strike, which as I said, is open in all directions. So we're just rotating around the Haiti project area. 39 core holes define that mineralization, and it's all within about 125 drilled meters of surface. We're itching to get in there and start building on that resource, and we're in good shape to do that. Here we are looking at the BEARTRACK branch of the property. You can see the conceptual pits along the trend of the Panther Creek shear zone, the infrastructure at site. Here's the ADR facility, the core logging facility. Back looking at the strike of the main zone at BEARTRACK, over 5.6 kilometers of known mineralized trend. And as we move underground now, you can see the deposit subsurface, moving from Joss to South Pit, Ward's Gulch, North Pit, and into Moose. As I think I mentioned earlier, 90,000 meters of drilling. And here you can see the open pit and underground material in the RPA resource, which was just posted February, a couple months ago, and the higher grade core to that deposit. Again, open in all directions here, to the depth, to the south, to the and to the north. Just in summary, growth company in gold. We are fast tracking on a proven property, and it's despite the challenges in the market, I think an exciting year ahead for Revival Gold.
All right, Hugh, I appreciate that. Let's go back to the presentation now. But more or less, we are going to address some of the questions that have come in.
Yeah.
1 second while I get those pulled up here. We had one actually that just came in. We'll address this one first. It says, what is Revival's current burn rate? How long will the $1 million raised in March 27th last?
So let me answer the question by saying we have solid shareholders who stepped in the middle of a very tough crisis. And so I think you can take from that we're going to be around for a long time to come, no matter how challenging it gets. I don't think it could have got any more challenging than March 23rd, 24th, 25th timeframe. And you saw that our shareholders stepped in and stood up for the company. Yeah, but to answer your question directly, our burn rate right now is probably around $40,000 or less $1,000 a month. We can make the $1 million last us a long time. We're choosing to move ahead with the PEA work, all of the preparation steps around our permitting and our drilling. We think it's a very good time to be active with that desktop work. We can do a lot of planning that might otherwise get rushed. And so we're moving ahead as quickly as we can. We're taking care of our dollars. All of our service providers and our team have stepped in to reduce the burn. Our board is taking no fees. I myself am not taking any salary, and our team has taken very significant salary cuts as well in order to use the dollars we have to the best leverage of the business. And why? Because we believe in this project. We think there's a ton of potential. We're really excited to be having the opportunity to work on it. And I hope I've given you a flavor for the approach we've taken. Manages our costs well, keep the burn low, don't put ourselves into a position of jeopardy, and enjoy the backing of solid shareholders.
Well, and one thing to consider there too, Hugh, is that you guys have been able to prove out a resource here while still staying under 100 million shares outstanding, well under that too. So I think that does provide some kudos to you and your team for keeping costs under control. In terms of exploration, though, when Idaho does open back up, how quickly can the company be out there with drills testing some of these extensions to the deposits?
Yeah, firstly, Idaho is open, and members of our team are based in Salmon, so don't need to get on planes to get out there. And again, I think it's a responsible government we have in the state of Idaho. They've done all of the right things in terms of setting out social distancing and stay-at-home orders through to the end of the month of April. And where we have opportunities to put people in the field safely, we will take full advantage of that. So make no mistake, Idaho is open for business. There's certainly we need to be respectful of the of safety job one, but Idaho's open for business. So the other thing I just want to say is, speaking to the track record that you mentioned earlier, over the last 3 years we've delivered 3 million ounces at less than $5 an ounce finding cost. So if past is any indication of future performance, you can expect more of the same from this team. We will be super efficient with our dollars, and we'll do well by our shareholders. Cory, I hope I answered your question.
I think so. Yep. Now, there was also a question that wanted a little bit of clarification on this oxide mineralization. You mentioned it a few times, and the oxide really is, from my understanding, a key component to any sort of at least early stage startup of this mining project. Again, take us through the goal of still growing that oxide and how it does play its role in this.
Yeah. We've got about 400,000 ounces of leachable material at BEARTRACK, so both oxide and transition material at BEARTRACK, all open pittable, all closely located to the existing infrastructure, the ADR plant you've seen. And then beyond that, the potential for additional oxide material lies on the ARNETT block of the property, which is key to our unlocking the value of the BEARTRACK ARNETT land position. And we have about 200,000 ounces of material out there, but as I've said, it's open in all directions, and we are permitted to get in there and continue to expand on that mineralized trend. So we'll be doing that as soon as we're able. And that's why that's an important focus for us. It fits very well with the existing infrastructure, with the existing resource at BEARTRACK proper, and it's very complementary in terms of sequencing of what we might do in terms of a restart of the operation.
Okay, Hugh, there's also another question that came in somewhat related to that asks about the recovery rate. It says how much is the recovery rate, but can you try to simplify an answer for this viewer as to what recoveries you would be looking at?
Yeah, and I apologize for the confusion. We quote recoveries on the basis of recovery to cyanide-soluble gold, as well as on the basis of total in situ gold. But I think for the broad audience here, what is easiest to understand is that our recoveries at BEARTRACK are approximately 70% of the in situ gold, and our recoveries at ARNETT are approximately 75% of in situ gold. This on the basis of, in the case of BEARTRACK, past operating experience, and in the case of ARNETT on the basis of test work that was done by Caps Cassidy and more recently by us through SGS.
Okay. Another question revolving around financing. It outlines that you did initially intend to raise $5 million in March, and then the markets did what they did. That financing was downsized to $1 million. At what point or at what share price would you then look to go back to market to raise a more significant amount of money?
Yeah. First, a clarifying comment. We did not replace the brokered financing. We basically walked away from it. It was a very difficult time in the market to be asking the brokers to run around and put a financing together. Nonetheless, we did have a book established, and our share price was spiraling down in the midst of the crisis. So we said, look, let's take our foot off the gas. Let's not jam shareholders who've committed to, or investors who've committed to that financing. Let's not jam the brokers. Let's not jam our stock and our capital structure with a badly timed offering. And we basically walked away from it. And instead, what we did was we said, look, we've got some need in the short term. Let's address that need by calling on our key shareholders to step up, including myself and others in our management team, all of whom agreed at the height of the crisis to put their money where their mouth is and stand behind the project. As to what we'll do in the future in terms of financing, I think a lot will depend on what we do in terms of the business. And maybe it's a bit of a segue to talk about what's going on in the industry right now, which is, I think, a recognition that gold has a crucial role in the financial system, has a crucial role for investors in their portfolios, and there is a growing interest in gold, and I think there's a growing interest, a new trend towards interest in gold equities. And in order to take advantage of that, Revival Gold is going to, of course, continue to progress our projects organically, but we also are looking at opportunities at the current time for industry consolidation or opportunities to take advantage of situations where companies maybe aren't in as good a position as we are, or where working together we can find a better future for ourselves and others. What this is to say is that we're busy looking at corporate development. And I don't know whether this is a 2-month time frame or a 2-year time frame, but I think when you get rifts in the market, as we're seeing with COVID-19 and the dramatic changes in what's going on in people's portfolios and with investors, I think that spells opportunity. And we've moved now from playing defense, from buttoning down our budgets and our cost structure, to how do we make use of what we've done and what we've built and build for the future market. And that is to say, we're looking at how we might play offense in this market. So are we going to come back to the market and do another financing? I don't know. I prefer to think that we'll find a possible combination or a scenario where we can build a better mousetrap for the future. No plans at the moment to come back to the market.
Okay. Hugh, I appreciate this time, spending it with us. I hope everybody has found this presentation, this webinar, insightful. I do not see any more questions coming in, so if anybody has any questions at the very end, please send them in right now. If we don't get to them, then you know what? You can always email me directly, fleck@kereport.com. I will get those questions in front of Hugh and probably follow up with some of them in a future interview. Hugh, again, I appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. There will be a recording available of this webinar very shortly after we conclude here. So, Hugh, again, thanks for your time. Everybody, keep in touch. I have a few more webinars coming in the next couple weeks. It's a good way to reach out to the interested parties and all the investors out there who we are all, for the most part, stuck at home. So, hey, Hugh, really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Cory. Thank you, everyone.